Okay, so everybody, welcome to TCIA. My name is Amy Tatro. I'm the SVP of Corporate Engagement at the Tree Care Industry Association, and we are here today to talk with John Dean from Custom Truck One Source. They're a TCIA member company who's going to chat with us about purchasing equipment. Okay, so purchasing equipment is like a big decision, right? It requires financial planning, equipment options, a review of current and potential jobs, all that good stuff. And the decision making is even more challenging these days due to, as many of you know, issues like the microchip or the chassis shortages. Okay, so what do you do to prepare? What are your options? John here is right on the front line of equipment manufacturing, and he's going to share his insights and the lessons, as well as some details around what's affecting the 2022 fleets. First of all, John, welcome. Thanks for
Oh,
being here with us.
thank you, Amy. Again, my name is John Dean. I'm with Custom Truck One Source. Worked with the forestry division here for 12 years. I've seen a lot of equipment. I've put my hands on a lot of equipment. I'm currently in sales, and I also do inside sales support. So I'm very familiar with the equipment, the chassis, the booms, not only just the booms that we build ourselves, but other equipment. I see a lot. I talk to a lot of people. Some of you probably know me. You might have one of my trucks. I might have spoken to you. So we're going to go over some of these things you've probably heard me talk about and some other things. So thanks
Awesome.
for having me, Amy.
Awesome. Thanks, John. All right, let's get right into it, right? 2020 and 2021 have been uncharted territory that's causing tree and landscape companies to pause, reevaluate how they approach fleet planning. So can you talk to us a little bit more about this, about fleet planning in 2021 and 2022 coming up?
Yeah, fleet planning's tough. You know better than me for sure how many tree guys you have and how many you need and how hard it is to get the ones you do need. That goes everything from whether or not you need a climber, do you need a CDL driver? Is your nephew willing to work for you, but he doesn't have a CDL? And with the 2021, the demand's gone up, and it's kind of hard to find help at the moment. So that's going to drive the type of equipment you need on top of the work you need. You need to add a crew or remove a crew. You're going to make the crew you have more efficient. All these are huge factors that have to do with the equipment you've purchased. Consider mine.
That's a really great point. So let's actually get into that a little bit more. What do you think are the top three considerations that companies should kind of bear in mind when they're planning for 2022?
Yeah, definitely the amount of crews you want to run. Are you going to be able to find the people? Are you going to have the work? Can you look that far into the future and say, I know I can find this work? Is there a state contract you decided you might want to bid on? Do you just see that your other local companies closing or dwindling or getting bad reviews that might actually help your work increase? Those are some of the biggest things. And can you get it? And when are you going to get it? Are you going to get it when you need it in season? I mean, do you live in the South Group where you have tree work all year long? Or do you live somewhere like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Maine, that it's going to snow? You're going to have a snow crew. You're not cutting any trees unless you get that emergency snow work call where the trees got too much snow or ice and it's falling. Most of the time you're pushing snow away for the spring trim. So you also decide, why would I buy a bucket truck in December in Minnesota? I'm not even going to work it until April or May. Why even bother? So that's something I always think about when you're going to buy. Can you get it? And when are you really going to need it?
Yeah, that's a really great point. And when should people and how should people start thinking about their equipment that might need replacing? Like, how can they pay attention to the current condition and kind of evaluate, well, I'm good now, but I'm going to need something in 2 or 3 months? Do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, uh, keep an eye on your equipment. Inspection, safety is number one, always. So make sure the equipment you have is taken care of and certified and inspected and safe to run, because you never know how long it's going to be. You might plan, you might have a little on your taxes this year and you need a piece of equipment. You might not be able to get it that quick. So you need to take care of what you have and maybe plan out with the expectations you can't get it. So make sure you take care of your equipment properly. It's gonna take care of you if you take care of it. And if you decide you're not going to keep it, it's going to be worth more if you take care of your equipment and have it certified and safe to operate.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Thank you for mentioning that for sure. And I think you hit on something really critical there. It's just the demand, right? Where you may need it now, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get it right now. And I think that kind of speaks to what you and I were talking about a little bit earlier about how at the beginning of the pandemic there was, that pause in landscape work, and then everything got super busy as people started working from home and paying attention to their trees. And then we started to see those supply chain issues associated with that high demand with everything around COVID. So I just kind of wanted to pull that out of your last statement and kind of just reiterate that when people are thinking about 2022 and about the future, that, think about what you're going to need in 3 to 6 months, and then go out and talk to folks like you and see what the demand is and see what they can actually get, because we are all in the middle of a supply chain issues, right?
Correct. And it's not all supply chain. It is. It was demand driven from the beginning. Supply chain is just a new hiccup for us. We work very well under pressure. At least I know I do. My company also works very well under pressure. We're very good at what we do. And it was the demand was already high, so the equipment wasn't always available, and the supply chain has affected us too. We're not immune, but we're working through it, and we all work through this together. So it's not all supply chain, but you got to look at it from all angles, demand and supply chain, to put a restriction on the industry as a whole from both sides. So you really need to consider long term. It's not like it used to be, that's for sure. Right? The phone calls, yeah, what do you got that's ready? Depends on what you're looking for. It's usually how the conversation always goes.
Yeah.
Well, when do you need it? I know you might need it now. Can you make it last what you have? It really kind of depends.
Yeah,
You
right?
got to look at
Things have
nature.
changed.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you look at other kinds of equipment. Tree guys, everybody knows bucket trucks. You know grapple trucks. You know chip trucks. Look at other equipment that might actually multi-purpose too. You might see just dump trucks. Let's talk about dump trucks. You see, it's just hauling gravel or mulch or whatever. You could put debris inside of that. Some of you have the skid loaders, things like that you can just load in a typical dump truck, and you could subcontract that out at another time later down the road. If you want to deliver mulch or stone or something like that, it's not tree work, but when you're not using it for tree work, you can use it for something else. And if it doesn't work out, take care of your equipment. It takes care of you, and it'll make you more money when you resell it. Take care of your equipment.
I think I know what the tagline for this video is going to be. Take care of your equipment. So I'm going to kind of pull us back on track here, because I want to get back to fleet preparations for 2022.
Yeah.
So what is the top question that a company should consider when deciding like what to add to its fleet? I know that we just talked about, these alternative out of the box solutions like dump trucks and that kind of thing. But what else should they really, really think about when they're looking at their equipment and trying to decide what's next?
My favorite people I like to talk to is that this is going to be their very first piece of brand new equipment. Most everybody's used, and most everybody for their used truck is going to be a forestry truck. It's going to be your multiple purpose. You can chip into it. You can use it as a bucket. You can pull your crew around and all your tools. So you have that. You took care of it. Now you want to look at something. Maybe we want to add a second crew. We're going to do them smaller. It's just going to be a trim crew with a climber and a chip truck and a chipper. So that's going to be my second crew. It's going to be small, just going to be trimming. Maybe we want to put on a full crew. We want to buy a new rear mount. That's a little bit more maneuverable. You can back up to your work, but then you don't have anything to chip into. So now what are you going to do with that debris? So do you buy a chip truck and a rear mount, or do you buy the rear mount and a grapple truck, and then just rely on just the climber? So you got to look at it that way. So the way it worked for years, guys would have a rear mount and a chip truck. And how it would start off, your first job, you'd have your rear mount and your chip truck, and your trimming and your chipping. And when the bucket's done with its work, the chip crew and the cleanup crew stays and finishes up while the bucket goes to the second job and gets started. Now, while he's working, now you have two crews at two jobs working. Nobody stopped working. When the first job is done with the chip, they move on to the second job and start to do the cleanup there. And as long as your bucket operator doesn't mind, when that's done, you can come down and help clean up. Or you move on, now you have a third job that the bucket truck's moved on, the chip truck's the second job. Things like that. So you kind of plan accordingly, but you still have your backup forestry truck. It's really easy to use. You're doing something real simple on the side of the road that you don't have to worry about getting in somebody's yard. The maneuverability is not so much of an issue. So you can run 2 full crews. But everybody still likes the forestry. It's the multi-purpose truck, and it's only one truck you got to take care of.
Yeah, the convenience
Yeah.
of that for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when you just have a bucket and you want to go bigger, you've got a lot of takedowns. You've dealt with the Emerald Ash Borer, you've had ice storms, you've had hurricanes. You want to go, okay, we're going to go big. We're going to get a crane. Now you're really talking about something big. Now you're talking about certifications, a CDL driver. Can it fit? Where is it going to go? How many tons you need? How far can you reach? That's really taking the jump, but that'll also get a lot of work done a lot faster. So that's something to always think about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm gonna take us on a little bit of a journey, but it's related, so bear with me here. We've talked a lot about just supply chain and about high demand and all of that sort of stuff that's affected the industry. But I'm also going to go out on a limb and say that current climate change has also affected the industry. So how can tree care folks plan their fleets around work that's due to these changes?
Yeah, it'll dry things out. The drought. We've seen it out in the West. There's a lot of things that can't be climbed anymore. There's a lot of things you can't reach with a bucket. A lot of tall trees. How are you going to take them out? How are you going to get them down? That's where you look again. Like we had brought up the crane. Is that the only way to get that tree out? Is it going to come apart when you take it? So there's flooding. How can you get to it without sinking in the mud? You're going to end up in a creek. How are you going to get to the job now because the ground is soggy? It's made people think about what kind of equipment they can get to the job with. I mean, you might be able to climb it, but once you climb it and you drop it, how do you get it out? Everybody wants giant ruts in their yards and get tore up. It's tough. We've seen a lot of droughts. We've seen a lot of floods, and it's brought on tree work that a lot of people aren't extremely familiar with. That it makes you think about what's the best one. Are they all dead? Are they all down? Is it just rotten? And it's been interesting to look at from that standpoint.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Thank you for talking about that a little bit more. So as folks are again considering that equipment and considering what they need to buy in order to meet the jobs, in order to meet the demand, in order to help their crews as best they can, what are some what are some ways that folks can find specific equipment, excuse me, to add to their fleet? Obviously, the best bet is that everybody should attend TCI Expo in November and go and look at all of the equipment in person. But do you have other advice for people who are trying to see what's out there as far as purchasing equipment?
Yeah, TCIA Expo would definitely be there because everybody's going to bring the newest, the best, and what we really think you're going to need. We're looking forward to coming ourselves to bring some new things for you to take a look at, and I'm sure everyone else will too. Everybody knows the internet by now. I still know a few of the old timers. I like to say they were still refused, but I bet you anything they have a grandson that'll do it for them. Asking your other fellow tree guys. You'll see the truck. Maybe you know one of the guys that used to be on your crew. Just still talk to them, ask around, use the internet, and yeah, call somebody. I mean, a lot of us are very welcome to listen to you and tell you what's available, what'll work and what doesn't, what's realistic and what's out there, what's in your price range. Uh, yeah, it's making that phone call, looking on the internet, asking who you're looking for, and attending the expo. Even some of your local groups that meet for some of your credits. Some people bring some equipment there when you're there for your credit, but the expo is definitely going to be the biggest place for you to find actually put hands on and talk to somebody and see it firsthand.
Heck yeah. Awesome. So on that note, is there anything else? I mean, we hit on a lot of subjects today, right? We talked about a lot of different things around purchasing equipment, around again shortages, high demand, climate change. how to buy equipment, where to buy equipment. We kind of just zoomed right through all of that. John, is there anything else that you would like to say that maybe we didn't touch on briefly that you want to kind of advise folks on when it comes to purchasing equipment?
Yeah, I touched on it briefly. It's looking at other pieces of equipment that you can use also for tree work, because everybody's always familiar with the bucket truck and the chipper and the chip truck. The crane industry's grown huge. The grapple industry and the grapple saws we've seen. Look back at that dump truck. Look at the roll-offs and hook lifts. Those have actually started to grow tremendously. We've seen on our end. Everybody sees them as just trash trucks. You can actually buy bodies that you can chip into them. You can use them as a debris to put in with the grapple. You can move anything. And again, it's something else you can subcontract. Look at other pieces of equipment and say, how can I make that work for me? And I'll be able to branch out and grow my business in another way. So look at it from an open mind. If I can't get this, what if I got this instead? Now I can do more. So yeah, look at equipment from an open mind right now. That's the best way I'd say to handle it.
That's really cool. Yeah, think outside the box, right? We all have to be a little creative these days. And I think, not to speak for you, but most importantly, take care of your equipment.
But
Yes?
take care of you. Safety first. Safety
Safety
first.
first, always, no matter what equipment you have. Totally. Awesome. Well, John, I really want to thank you for taking some time out this afternoon to discuss this with us. We really appreciate it. And I think most importantly, I'm super stoked to see you in person at TCIA Expo in Indy in just a few weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. Look forward to it. I'll see you then.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Amy.